The ship fell from the sky like a dying star. It cut through the frozen clouds of Velka 9 and hit the ice fields with a sound that echoed across the empty white land. Metal screamed. Fire burned bright against the snow. Then there was silence. Tae-ho woke up to pain. His whole body hurt. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his head. The cold bit into his skin like 1,000 tiny knives. He was lying in the broken shell of what used to be a transport ship. Around him, the bodies of the other passengers lay still and frozen. He was alone. He was the only one breathing. He crawled out of the wreckage. The wind hit him hard, pushing him back. The moon's surface was nothing but ice and rock and endless white. No trees, no shelter, nothing but cold death waiting for him in every direction. Tae-ho wrapped his arms around himself and started walking. He did not know where he was going. He only knew that if he stopped moving, he would die. He walked for hours. His fingers went numb. His feet lost feeling. His breath came out in white clouds that the wind stole away. He fell many times. Each time, he got back up. He told himself to take one more step, just one more, then another, then another. That was how the Koran found him. They came out of the snow like ghosts, 4 of them, massive creatures that stood twice as tall as any human. They had 4 arms each, thick with muscle. Their skin was gray and tough like stone. Their faces were flat, with small eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. Each of them carried weapons made of bone and dark metal. Tae-ho stopped walking. He did not have the strength to run. He could only stand there and look up at these monsters that had appeared from nowhere. The largest one stepped forward. He was young, but his body was covered in scars. His name was Gul, though Tae-ho did not know this yet. Gul looked down at the small human with something like disgust in his yellow eyes. He spoke in a language Tae-ho did not understand. The sounds were deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. Gul pointed at Tae-ho with one of his clawed hands and made a gesture that clearly meant death. Another Koran spoke. This one was older, a female with white marks painted on her gray skin. Her name was Bora. She was an elder of the clan, a keeper of old laws and old ways. She said something sharp to Gul, and the young warrior stepped back with an angry growl. Bora walked closer to Tae-ho. She bent down and looked at him with eyes that held no warmth, but also no cruelty. She was studying him like a hunter studies a strange animal caught in a trap. Tae-ho knew he should look away. Every part of his mind screamed at him to lower his eyes, to show weakness, to beg for his life. But something deep inside him refused. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the last fire of survival burning in his chest. He met Bora's gaze and held it. The old female made a surprised sound. She stood up and spoke to the others in their rough language. Whatever she said made them all go quiet. Gul looked angry, but he did not argue. Bora reached down and grabbed Tae-ho's arm. Her grip was strong enough to break bones, but she was careful. She pulled him up and pushed him toward the other Koran. One of them threw a heavy fur over his shoulders. It smelled like animal blood, but it was warm. They took him across the ice fields. Tae-ho stumbled many times, but they did not slow down for him. He had to keep up or be left behind. So he kept up. He pushed his broken body forward step by step. After many hours, they reached the clan hold. It was built into the side of a great mountain of black rock. The entrance was a massive cave mouth, lit by fires that burned with blue and orange flames. Inside, Tae-ho saw more Koran than he could count, hundreds of them. Males, females, and young ones, too. They all stopped what they were doing to stare at the small creature that the hunters had brought home. The whispers started immediately. Tae-ho could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Mockery, disgust, amusement. To them, he was not a person. He was a curiosity. A weak little thing that had somehow survived the cold. Gul spoke loudly to the crowd. He pointed at Tae-ho and laughed. Others laughed with him. One word was repeated many times, thrown at Tae-ho like a stone. He would later learn what it meant. Bone walker, one too weak to carry meat. The lowest insult among a people who valued strength above all things. Bora silenced them with a raised hand. She spoke in her commanding voice, and the clan listened. She explained the old law. Any creature found alive on their hunting grounds could ask for sanctuary, could ask for a chance to prove its worth. Tae-ho had met her challenge stare. By their own ancient rules, he had earned the right to try. They did not give him a warm welcome. They gave him a place near the waste pits, where the smell was bad and the heat from the clan fires did not reach. They gave him scraps of food that the hunting beasts would not eat. They gave him the status of unblooded, the lowest of the low, below even the children who had not yet made their first kill. That night, Tae-ho lay in the darkness and listened to the sounds of the clan. He heard laughter and singing and the cries of babies. He heard the crackling of fires and the howling of the wind outside. He was surrounded by creatures that wanted him dead or gone. He had no friends, no weapons, no way to go home. But he was alive. He closed his eyes and made a promise to himself. He would not die here. He would not break. He would not give them the satisfaction of watching him fail. He did not know how yet, but he would find a way to survive. He would show them that being small did not mean being weak. Tomorrow he would start watching, start learning, start planning. The Quran thought they had brought home a piece of helpless prey. They were wrong. They had brought home a human, and humans, Tae-ho knew, were the most dangerous thing in any room. Not because of their claws or their teeth or their strength, because of their minds, because of their will, because they never ever gave up. Tae-ho smiled in the darkness. Let them call him weak. Let them call him worthless. He would remember every insult, every laugh, every look of disgust, and one day he would make them remember him. The days were long and hard. Tae-ho woke before the sun rose and worked until his muscles screamed for rest. The Quran gave him the worst jobs they could think of. He cleaned the places where they butchered their kills. He carried water from the frozen streams outside. He scraped the fat and blood from animal hides until his hands were raw and bleeding. They expected him to complain. He did not complain. They expected him to cry. He did not cry. They expected him to give up and beg for death. He did not give up. Instead, he watched. He listened. He learned. The Koran language was difficult. The sounds came from deep in the throat, and human mouths were not made to speak them. But Tae-ho practiced every night, alone in his corner near the waste pits. He whispered the words to himself over and over until they started to make sense. He learned the word for fire, the word for meat, the word for hunt, the word for death. Within 1 month, he could understand almost everything they said. Within 2 months, he could speak back. The first time he answered a Koran warrior in their own tongue, the whole room went silent. The warrior had been mocking him, calling him names, thinking the stupid little human could not understand. Tae-ho looked up at him and said very calmly that he had heard every word. The warrior's yellow eyes went wide with shock. After that, they were more careful about what they said around him. But the mockery did not stop. It just became quieter. Tae-ho also watched how they hunted. The Koran were masters of the kill. They were strong and fast and deadly. They could track an animal across miles of frozen ground. They could smell blood from far away. They could wait in perfect stillness for hours, then explode into violence when the moment was right. But Tae-ho noticed something. The Koran hunted with power. They used their strength to overpower their prey. They were not patient. They did not like long chases. They wanted quick kills, fast victories. When the hunt took too long, they grew frustrated and made mistakes. Tae-ho filed this knowledge away in his mind. He did not know when it would be useful, but he knew it would be useful someday. At night, when the clan slept, Tejo worked on other things. He found bones that the butchers had thrown away. He shaped them with rocks and his own bleeding fingers until he had made a knife. It was small and simple, but it was sharp. He hid it in his sleeping furs. He made rope from the sinew that was left over from hide scraping. He made snares from bent bones and cord. He practiced setting them up and taking them down in the darkness, until he could do it without making a sound. He also practiced moving quietly. The Koran had powerful hearing. They could hear a footstep from across the cave. But Tejo learned to walk on the edges of his feet, to place each step carefully, to become like a shadow. Some nights he would sneak through the clan hold just to prove he could do it. No one ever caught him. One night, Gul found him alone near the water stream. The young warrior had been drinking, and his eyes were bright with anger. He grabbed Tejo by the neck and lifted him off the ground. "Why do you not die?" Gul demanded. His breath smelled like fermented meat. "You are small. You are soft. You have no claws, no fangs, no strength. Every day I expect to find your frozen body, but every day you are still here. Why?" Tejo could barely breathe. Gul's grip was crushing his throat. Black spots danced in his vision, but he forced himself to speak. "Because I am not weak," he said in perfect Koran. "I am waiting." Gul's eyes widened. He dropped Tejo to the ground and stepped back. For a long moment, he just stared at the human who lay gasping at his feet. "Waiting for what?" Gul asked. Tejo smiled. He did not answer. Gul walked away that night with fear in his heart. He had seen many creatures die in his life. He knew what weakness looked like. He knew what surrender looked like. But the look in the human's eyes was neither of those things. It was something else, something that made Gul's hunter instincts scream a warning. He went to his father's chamber and told him what had happened. His father was Kang, the master huntsman of the clan. Kang was the greatest hunter among all the Koran. He had killed beasts that others said could not be killed. He had survived hunts that others said could not be survived. His body was a map of scars, and each scar told a story of victory. Kang listened to his son's words without speaking. When Gul was finished, the old huntsman sat in silence for a long time. "This human," Kang finally said, "you say he learned our language in one moon cycle?" "Yes, father." "And he moves through the hold at night without being heard?" Gul hesitated. "I have heard rumors. Some of the guards say they have seen shadows that disappear." Kang nodded slowly. His yellow eyes were thoughtful. "I will watch this creature myself." And so he did. For the next several weeks, Kang observed the human from the shadows. He saw Tejo work without complaint. He saw Tejo study the hunters as they prepared for their expeditions. He saw the way Tejo's eyes moved, always watching, always learning, taking in every detail. Kang had hunted many different creatures in his long life. He knew how to read them. He knew what they wanted, what they feared, what they were capable of. And as he watched the human, he began to understand something that the rest of the clan had missed. This creature was not prey. It moved like prey. It looked like prey. It had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. But behind those soft brown eyes, there was a mind working, planning, preparing. This creature was a hunter in its own way. A different kind of hunter, one that Kang had never seen before. The master huntsman did not share his thoughts with anyone. He simply continued to watch. And he waited to see what the human would do next. Tejo knew he was being watched. He could feel the old warrior's eyes on him sometimes, heavy and thoughtful. He pretended not to notice. He kept doing his work. He kept learning. He kept preparing. The winter grew colder. The hunts became harder. Food became less plentiful. And somewhere in the deep ice, something ancient was beginning to wake up. Something that would change everything. But Taeho did not know that yet. For now, he focused on surviving one day at a time. He focused on becoming stronger, smarter, better. He focused on turning his weakness into a weapon. The Quran still called him Bone Walker. They still laughed at him. They still expected him to break. They did not understand. Every insult made him stronger. Every hardship taught him something new. Every day he survived was a victory. And soon, very soon, they would learn what a human could really do. The screaming started at dawn. Taeho woke to the sound of Quran voices raised in grief and rage. He pulled himself from his sleeping furs and moved toward the main chamber of the clan hold. A hunting party had returned, but they had not returned whole. 3 warriors lay dead on the stone floor. Their bodies were torn apart, ripped open by claws larger than anything Taeho had ever seen. One of them was barely recognizable. The others were missing limbs. Blood pooled beneath them, dark and thick. The clan gathered around the bodies. Females wailed. Males roared with fury. Children hid behind their parents, their yellow eyes wide with terror. Elder Bora pushed through the crowd and fell to her knees beside the youngest body. Her face twisted with grief. This one had been her grandson, her last living blood relative. Now he was gone, killed by something out on the ice. Kang arrived moments later. His face was hard as stone as he looked at the dead warriors. He spoke to the survivors, his voice low and dangerous. "What did this?" One of the surviving hunters stepped forward. His name was Day, and he was shaking with fear. Taeho had never seen a Koran shake before. "A Velthorn," Day said. "It came from the deep glaciers. We did not see it until it was already among us. It killed 3 before we could even draw our weapons. Then it vanished back into the snow." Whispers spread through the crowd. Taeho heard the word Velthorn repeated many times. He did not know what it meant, but he could see the fear on every face. In the days that followed, Taeho learned the truth. A Velthorn was a monster from old stories, a creature that the Koran thought had died out long ago. It was massive, with 6 legs and jaws that could bite through bone and metal alike. It was fast, faster than anything that size should be, and it was smart enough to hunt the hunters. Kang led hunt after hunt into the frozen wastes. Each time, they found nothing. The Velthorn struck without warning and disappeared before anyone could fight back. More warriors died. The clan grew afraid. Taeho watched all of this carefully. He asked questions when he could. He studied the maps that the hunters used. He listened to the stories of each attack. And slowly, he began to see a pattern. The Velthorn was not attacking randomly. It was targeting specific routes. The paths that the Quran hunting parties used most often. It had learned their habits, their schedules, their movements. It was using their own predictability against them. One evening, Taeho approached Elder Bora in her chamber. She looked old and tired, worn down by grief. She barely glanced at him when he entered. "I know something about the beast," Taeho said. Bora's eyes sharpened. "You know nothing, Bone Walker. You have never seen the Velthorn. You have never fought anything in your worthless life." "I have seen the maps," Taeho replied calmly. "I have heard the stories of each attack. The Velthorn is not hunting blindly. It has learned your patterns. It knows where you will be before you get there. That is why you cannot catch it." Bora stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed bitterly. "Even if that is true, what good does it do? We cannot change our patterns. The hunting grounds are limited. The paths through the ice are fixed. We must go where the prey goes." "Then you must change how you hunt," Taeho said. "Not where. How?" Before Bora could respond, a voice came from the doorway. "Explain." Taeho turned. Kang stood there, his massive form filling the entrance. His yellow eyes were fixed on the human with an intensity that made Taeho's heart pound, but he did not look away. "My people have a way of hunting," Taeho said, We do not have claws or fangs. We are not fast or strong, but we can do something that almost no other creature can do. We can keep moving when everything else has to stop." Kang tilted his head. "I do not understand." "The Velthorn is faster than you," Taeho continued. "It is stronger than you. If you chase it, it will escape. If you try to ambush it, it will ambush you first. But it cannot run forever. Nothing can. Its body will grow tired. Its muscles will burn. Its lungs will struggle for air. And when that happens, it will slow down. It will make mistakes. It will become vulnerable." "You speak of running it to exhaustion," Kang said slowly. "Following it without rest until it cannot run anymore." "Yes. My ancestors called it persistence hunting. They would track an animal for days, never letting it rest, never letting it drink or eat or sleep. Eventually, even the strongest beast would collapse. Then the kill was easy." Kang was silent for a long time. His eyes never left Taeho's face. "This would take many days," he finally said. "My warriors are built for power, not endurance. They cannot walk for days without rest." "I can," Taeho said simply. Another long silence. Then Kang did something unexpected. He smiled. "Very well, human. You will join the next hunt, not as a warrior, as a tracker. You will show us this persistence hunting of yours. And if you are wrong, if this plan fails, I will kill you myself." Taeho nodded. "I understand." The hunt began 3 days later. Kang chose his 5 best warriors to join them. They moved into the frozen wastes, following the Velthorn's trail. Taeho walked at the front, reading the tracks in the snow, noting the broken ice and the tiny traces of blood. The Koran wanted to charge ahead. They wanted to find the beast and fight it, but Taeho made them slow down. He made them walk at a steady pace, not too fast, not too slow, just constant, relentless, never stopping. Hours passed. The warriors grew impatient. They complained that this was not real hunting. Taeho ignored them and kept walking. A day passed. The warriors grew tired. Their powerful muscles, built for explosive violence, began to burn with exhaustion. Some of them had to stop and rest. Taeho did not stop. He kept following the trail. 2 days passed. Even Kang was struggling now, but Taeho moved forward like a machine, 1 foot in front of the other, his eyes fixed on the tracks ahead. On the 3rd day, they found the Velthorn. It was lying in a hollow between 2 ice ridges, its 6 legs folded beneath its massive body. Its breath came in ragged gasps. Its eyes were dull with exhaustion. It had run and run and run, but it could not escape the thing that followed it. The thing that never stopped. The thing that kept coming no matter how fast it moved. The Velthorn tried to rise when it saw them. It managed to get to its feet, but its legs were shaking. It roared, but the roar was weak. Kang stepped forward with his great spear in his hands. The Velthorn lunged at him, but its movements were slow, clumsy. Kang dodged easily and drove his spear into the creature's neck. The Velthorn fell and did not rise again. The warriors stood in stunned silence. They had hunted the unhuntable. They had killed the unkillable. And they had done it because a small, weak, worthless human had shown them a new way. Kang pulled his spear from the dead beast and turned to look at Taeho. The human was standing there calmly, not even breathing hard. He had walked for 3 days straight, while the greatest Koran warriors had nearly collapsed. "What are you?" Kang asked quietly. Taeho met his eyes. "I am human," he said. "We do not stop. We do not quit. We do not give up. Ever." For the first time, Kang looked at the human not with curiosity, but with respect, and perhaps, just perhaps, with something like fear. The clan celebrated for 3 days and 3 nights. The Velthorn's skull was mounted above the great fire in the main chamber. Its bones were carved into weapons and jewelry. Its meat fed the entire clan for a week. But not everyone was happy. Gul stood in the shadows, watching the celebrations with anger burning in his chest. He had been on that hunt. He had seen what happened. And he could not accept it. A human, a worthless, weak, clawless human, had led them to victory. The greatest kill in a generation. And it belonged to an unblooded creature that could not even lift a proper weapon. It was wrong. It was an insult to everything the Quran believed in. Other young warriors felt the same way. They gathered around Gul and whispered their complaints. The human had used tricks, they said, prey tactics. There was no honor in walking an enemy to death. A true warrior faced his prey with strength and courage, not with patience and endurance. The whispers grew louder. They spread through the clan like poison. On the fourth night after the hunt, Gul made his move. Tai-Ho was eating his evening meal when the young warrior approached him. The main chamber went quiet as Gul stood over the human, his 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. "You think you are one of us now," Gul said loudly so everyone could hear. "You think one hunt makes you a warrior, but you are not. You are still prey. You are still weak. You won that victory through trickery, not skill." Tai-Ho continued eating. He did not look up. Gul's face twisted with rage. "Look at me when I speak to you, Bone Walker." Tai-Ho finished his bite and slowly raised his eyes. His expression was calm, almost bored. "I hear you," he said, "but I do not see what you want me to do about your feelings." The watching Koran made sounds of shock. No unblooded had ever spoken to a warrior like that. Gul's hands clenched into fists. "I challenge you," Gul growled. "The right of claws. You and me. Tomorrow at dawn. Unless you are too afraid." The right of claws. Tai-Ho had learned about it during his months in the clan. It was a ritual duel fought to submission or death. 2 warriors entered a circle drawn in the snow. Only one left with honor intact. To refuse a challenge was to be marked as a coward forever. To accept meant fighting a Koran warrior twice his size with 4 arms and natural weapons built into his hands. Every eye in the chamber was on Tai-Ho. Every ear waited for his answer. Tai-Ho set down his food and stood up. He was so much smaller than Gul. The top of his head barely reached the Koran's chest, but he showed no fear. "I accept," he said clearly. The chamber erupted in noise. Warriors shouted and stomped their feet. Bets were made. Most of the clan expected Tai-Ho to die within the first minute. That night, Tai-Ho did not sleep. He sat in his corner and thought about everything he had learned. He thought about the way Koran warriors fought. They were aggressive. They used their strength and speed to overwhelm their enemies quickly. They did not like long fights. They did not expect prey to fight back. He thought about his own advantages. He was smaller and weaker, but he was also lighter and more flexible. He had his bone knife, which the rules allowed. He had trained himself to move quietly and carefully, and he had something that Gul did not have: patience. Dawn came cold and gray. The entire clan gathered around the fighting circle, a ring of stones placed in the snow outside the clan hold. Tai-Ho stood on one side, Gul stood on the other. Kang stood between them, his face unreadable. "The right of claws," Kang announced. "The fight continues until one yields or dies. No interference from outside. May the stronger hunter win." He stepped back. Gul charged immediately. He was a blur of gray muscle and flashing claws, all 4 arms reaching for Tai-Ho's throat. The watching Koran roared with approval, but Tai-Ho was not there. He had moved the instant Gul's feet left the ground. He ducked low and rolled to the side, letting the massive warrior sail past him. Gul crashed into the snow and spun around with a snarl of frustration. He charged again, and again, and again. Each time, Tai-Ho was somewhere else. He did not try to block. He did not try to attack. He simply moved, always just out of reach, always one step ahead. The watching clan began to jeer. This was not fighting. This was running away. But Kang watched with different eyes. He saw what the others did not see. He saw that Ghoul was getting slower. Each charge took more energy. Each miss made him angrier, made him sloppier. And the human kept moving at the same steady pace, not even breathing hard. 10 minutes passed. 20. 30. Ghoul was panting now. His charges had become clumsy. Sweat ran down his gray skin despite the cold. His eyes were wild with fury and exhaustion. Then Taeho struck. He waited for Ghoul's next swing, a wide slash with his upper right arm. As the claws passed over his head, Taeho stepped inside Ghoul's guard. His bone knife flashed. A red line opened across Ghoul's dominant arm, cutting deep into the muscle. Ghoul screamed and staggered back. Blood dripped onto the snow. Before he could recover, Taeho moved again. He swept his leg against the back of Ghoul's knee. The big warrior lost his balance and fell. Taeho was on him instantly, his knife pressed against Ghoul's throat. Silence. Complete and total silence. Taeho looked down at the warrior who had tormented him for months. He could feel Ghoul's pulse under the blade. One push, and it would be over. One push, and he would have revenge for every insult, every blow, every moment of humiliation. But he did not push. "I do not want your death," Taeho said quietly. "I want your respect. I am not your enemy. I am not prey. I am a hunter, just a different kind." He pulled the knife away and stood up. Then he reached down and offered his hand to Ghoul. The young warrior stared at that hand like it was a poisonous snake. He had lost. By every law of the Quran, his life now belonged to Taeho. He expected death, or at least slavery. He did not expect mercy. Slowly, hesitantly, Ghoul reached up and took the human's hand. Taeho pulled him to his feet. The clan did not know how to react. They had never seen anything like this. A victor showing mercy? An unblooded defeating a full warrior? The world had turned upside down. Then Kang stepped forward. The master huntsman walked into the circle and stood before Taeho. He reached up to his own neck and removed the bone token that hung there. It was the symbol of his rank, earned through a lifetime of impossible hunts and legendary kills. He had worn it for 50 years. "This one hunted with me," Kang said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. He tracked the untraceable. He bled for the clan. He showed mercy when he had earned the kill. He placed the bone token around Taeho's neck. He is no longer unblooded. He is no longer Bone Walker. Kang gripped Taeho's forearm in the Koran gesture of equals. His yellow eyes met Taeho's brown ones. "He is my brother." The word echoed in the cold morning air. Brother. The highest honor one Koran could give another. And Kang, the greatest of them all, had given it to a human. For a moment, nothing moved. Then slowly, Elder Bora stepped forward and knelt before Taeho. Then another warrior, then another. One by one, the clan acknowledged the impossible truth. The creature they had called weak and worthless had become one of them. And standing in the circle, surrounded by the kneeling Koran, Taeho allowed himself to feel something he had almost forgotten. Hope. The seasons changed on Velka 9. The endless winter gave way to a brief cold spring, then returned again. And in that time, Taeho's legend grew. Young hunters sought him out and asked him to teach them. They wanted to learn the human way. How to track without being seen. How to read the land and predict where prey would go. How to be patient, to wait, to endure. Taeho taught them everything he knew, and they listened with respect in their yellow eyes. Elder Bora formally adopted him into her bloodline. It was a great honor, one that had never been given to an outsider before. She said that the spirits of her ancestors had spoken to her in dreams. They told her that this human was special, that he was meant to be part of the clan. Even Ghoul changed. The young warrior who had once hated Taeho became his most loyal companion. The mercy that Tai-Ho had shown him in the fighting circle had broken something inside Gul. It had destroyed his pride, yes, but it had also destroyed his blindness. He began to see the human as Kang saw him, as a brother. They hunted together many times. Gul's strength and Tai-Ho's patience made them a perfect team. The other warriors called them the Two Shadows, because their prey never saw them coming until it was too late. Kang watched all of this with satisfaction. He had known, from the moment he first started observing the human, that there was something different about this creature, something powerful. Now the whole clan could see it too. But Kang also knew that change was coming. The Quran could not stay hidden on their frozen moon forever. The galaxy was vast, filled with other species, other civilizations. Sooner or later, they would have to make contact. And when that day came, they would need someone who understood both worlds. The message arrived on a cold morning, carried by a probe that fell from the sky. It was a communication from the Galactic Assembly, the great council that governed the known species of the universe. They had detected the Koran civilization. They wanted to meet. The clan elders gathered to discuss what to do. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to hide, but Kang had a different idea. "We will send a delegation," he said. "We will show them who we are, and we will bring the human with us." Tai-Ho was surprised when Kang told him. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you are the bridge," Kang replied. "You understand us, but you are not us. You can explain our ways to them in terms they will understand, and you can show them what is possible when different creatures work together." The delegation traveled for many weeks through the cold darkness of space. Tai-Ho looked out the window of the Koran ship and watched the stars drift by. He thought about his life, about the crash that had brought him here, about the suffering he had endured, about everything he had learned. He did not regret any of it. The Galactic Assembly met on a great space station in the heart of the civilized systems. Thousands of species gathered there, creatures of every size and shape and color. Some had wings, some had tentacles, some were made of light or crystal or living metal. They all turned to look as the Koran delegation arrived. Whispers spread through the crowd. The Koran were known throughout the galaxy. They were feared as the greatest hunters in existence. Other species told stories about them to frighten their children. And now they were here, walking through the halls of the assembly with a small, soft creature at the head of their group. "What is that?" someone asked, pointing at Tai-Ho. "A human," another replied. "A weak species from a small planet. Nothing special." But then they saw the bone token around Tai-Ho's neck. They saw the way the Koran warriors walked behind him, protecting him, respecting him. They saw the marks on his arms, the ritual scars that showed he had been adopted into a Koran bloodline, and they did not understand. The assembly called for the Koran delegation to speak. Kang stepped forward, but instead of speaking himself, he gestured for Tai-Ho to come to his side. "This one will speak for us," Kang announced. Tai-Ho looked out at the thousands of alien faces watching him. He felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in his life. But he did not let the fear show. He had faced worse than this. He had survived the cold. He had earned the respect of predators. He could do this. "I know what you see when you look at me," he began. "You see something weak, something soft, something that should not be standing here among the greatest hunters in the galaxy." He paused. "The Quran thought the same thing when they found me. I was dying in the snow, alone, helpless. They could have killed me. They could have left me to freeze. Instead, they gave me a chance to prove myself." He walked slowly across the speaking platform, his voice growing stronger. "And I did prove myself. Not by being stronger than them. Not by being faster or more deadly. I proved myself by being patient, by learning, by adapting, by never giving up, no matter how hard things got." He stopped and looked directly at the assembly. My people have a saying, "It is not the strongest or the fastest that survives. It is the one most willing to change, the one most willing to keep moving forward even when everything seems impossible." He gestured to Kang and the other Koran. The Koran taught me how to hunt. They taught me how to fight. They taught me how to survive in a world that wanted me dead. And in return, I taught them that there is more than one kind of strength, that patience can be a weapon, that mercy can be a victory, that different does not mean lesser. He raised his chin. I am human. We are small. We are soft. We do not have claws or fangs or armor, but we have something else. We have will. We have determination. We have the ability to endure anything, to adapt to anything, to overcome anything. And when we find allies who believe in us, there is nothing in this galaxy that can stop us. Silence fell over the assembly. Then Kang stepped forward. He placed one of his massive hands on Tae-Ho's shoulder and spoke in a voice that echoed through the great hall. You see his skin and think him weak. You see his size and think him prey. But this one walked through our winter when our own warriors fell. He thinks where we rage. He endures where we break. He made us better hunters, and he did it without ever losing what makes him human. Kang's yellow eyes swept across the watching crowd. We came here today not as conquerors or enemies. We came here because of him, because he showed us that strength has more than one shape, and that the galaxy is bigger than any one species. The silence stretched on for another long moment. Then, somewhere in the crowd, someone began to clap, then another, then another. The applause spread until it filled the entire chamber, a thundering wave of sound that washed over Tae-Ho like warm water. He had done it. He had shown them. The weak, worthless creature that had crawled from the wreckage of a crashed ship had become a bridge between worlds. Later, as the delegation prepared to leave, Tae-Ho stood at the observation window and looked out at the stars. Gul came to stand beside him. "What are you thinking about?" Gul asked. Tae-Ho smiled. "I am thinking about home." "Your human home?" "No," Tae-Ho said quietly. "The clan hold, the frozen moon, the place where I became who I am." Gul nodded slowly. "Then let us return, brother. There is still much hunting to do." They returned to Velka 9 together. The frozen moon had not changed. The ice was still endless, the cold still biting, the land still harsh and beautiful. But Tae-Ho had changed. He was no longer the broken survivor who had crawled from the wreckage. He was no longer the bone walker who slept by the waste pits. He was Tae-Ho, brother of Kang, friend of Gul, son of Bora's bloodline. He was a hunter, a teacher, a legend. And across the stars, other species began to wonder. If one human could do this alone, if one small creature could earn the brotherhood of the galaxy's most feared predators, what might humanity do together? The answer to that question would come in time. But for now, Tae-Ho was content to walk across the snow of his adopted home, surrounded by his clan, looking up at the cold stars that had once seemed so frightening. He had fallen from those stars as a nobody. He would rise among them as something more. They had called him weak and worthless. They would never make that mistake again.